Hello, everybody. It is, believe it or not, that time of year where we are talking about entertaining and gathering with friends and family, which I think that this, at least for us in Canada, is the first time since 2019 that we're able to do it completely freely, completely unrestricted. Obviously, if you're sick, stay at home and all the rules that you're supposed to follow. But it is truly, I think, the first time since 2019 where we have no limits on gatherings and restaurants are open, and Christmas parties are happening, and all that fabulous good stuff. So it's great to be back with you and to have you with us. And I'm really, really excited for the next couple of weeks because we are going to be sharing the screen with some of our favorite people who are going to share some wonderful recipes and I guess their spin on how to do different types of teas and how to use tea to entertain. So without any further ado, I am very pleased to welcome my first guest, and that is Stephen Twining. Hi, Stephen. Hello. Stephen, can you hear me? Hello. Oh, hello. No, Stephen cannot hear me. Hello, hello. I see him there, and hopefully you all can as well. Looks like we have some technical problems, but this is the fun of doing something live.
Well, good afternoon. We seem to be having a couple of technical difficulties here, and no doubt we will resolve those for you shortly. So rather than keep you waiting, I'm going to just carry on and make you a delicious London Fog Earl Grey vanilla, which is terrific on a chilly afternoon like it is, I think, across most of Canada. It certainly is here in the UK. So what I've done is I've put 180 ml, which is about half a mugful of milk, and I've gone for a full fat milk into my milk frother because I like the texture. I'm using a blue label milk. That's the regular milk, nothing reduced, because again that adds to the texture. I'm just going to flick the kettle on because we need boiling water at just the right temperature, and going to deploy one of our wonderful Earl Grey with vanilla tea bags. As always, tea into the brewing vessel first, and I always like to brew tea when demonstrating in a glass vessel. So just as the kettle comes to the boil, we're going to go for another 180 ml of boiling water, and that's about right. And of course, timing is everything. So 3 minutes, I'm going to have to make conversation with you because the one thing you can't do with tea is to rush it. For 5,000 years, obviously, tea has given off its flavour unaided by human intervention. I'm often asked why loose leaf tea appears to taste better, and I think the answer to that is that when you make it in a teapot, you pour on the water, you add the boiling water, unless it's green tea, in which case it's slightly below, and then you put the lid on the teapot and let it be. And therefore, there's none of this jiggling business. People let it get on. Tea bags are convenience food. They are certainly not instant food. And yes, they did sort of deceive us, particularly when we're bringing a cup or a mug, as I'm doing this afternoon.
Can you hear me, Stephen?
Because the colour washes off the tea, and therefore, because we drink with our eyes, and we eat with our eyes, which has served humanity incredibly well over our evolution, it is the color is right within moments, and therefore it's very deceptive and very easy to think that the flavor has come out. Flavor is not color. There are three things in tea. There's color, there's the mouthfeel that you might call the strength, and there is obviously then the flavor. And I always advise people that the intensity of taste, what you might call again the strength, is to do with the amount of tea and the amount of water. So if you like a light, delicate tea, certainly you could select a more delicate blend. And then you could add more water to it. So instead of having 180 ml, you might want 250, a full mug size. I have different mug sizes depending on what sort of tea I'm brewing. If I'm brewing a green tea, my mug will be at least 50% bigger than this because I like really gentle, soft, soothing flavors coming out of green tea. Whereas this is ideal for a latte or an English breakfast first thing in the morning. So it's a very good Canadian cup. I hope you can see inside. Proudly carrying the maple leaf on this great mug. Ideal for this afternoon's nice warming drink. So let's just have a look at the time. We've got 17 seconds of brewing time to go. And the next thing I'm going to need is some vanilla essence and vanilla syrup, just to enhance that vanilla-y taste, and add a little bit of natural sweetness. So out comes the bag. People often ask me, should you squeeze the bag to get the flavor out? And I say, I squeeze the bag so when I put it aside, I don't drip it across the table and therefore get into trouble with anybody. No names, no pantry, obviously. So the brewed tea can go into my mug, and the nicely foamed milk we will add in as well. And I'm going to try and elegantly scrape out, I'm not very elegant with a teaspoon, scrape out some of the nice froth, because that's going to just give us the lovely initial texture that I love about this particular drink. I shall reach for my vanilla essence, and I'm going to have half a teaspoonful. This is very much a add to taste, add to sweeten. Gently stir that in, and on our recipe it actually says sprinkle with cinnamon. I'm going to go one better. I've got sweet cinnamon, which I think just gives this a little bit more of a lift, just the extra bit of cinnamony flavor. And I've been obviously testing this for some time, and my cinnamon stock is running low, but it's just a sprinkle over the top, and then it's a question of, well, cheers. I hope you tried. I thoroughly recommend this. Absolutely fabulous. You get nice bubbles. The cinnamon is sort of playing with your olfactory nerve, your sense of smell, and then the vanilla comes through, balanced with that nice citrus character that is Earl Grey, coming from the citrus fruit, the bergamot. So a really good combination, a lovely warming drink on a chilly day, such as you're having and I'm having.
So unfortunately, Stephen can't hear me.
I can now.
Oh, yes. Okay. I don't know. I have no idea what happened there, but I know that the audience could hear you all along, and they could hear me, but for some reason you and I couldn't. But now we can. So there you go. That was fabulous. That was your Earl Grey latte. Deliciousness. Do you make any other kinds of lattes, Stephen?
Yeah, I'm increasingly doing lattes. At this time of year, because I think milk is good for you. I know tea is good for you. And yes, when you come in, we've got a couple of dogs, and you get chilly. You really want a nice warming brew, and the latte effect, if you like, to me just gives it that little bit extra.
Yeah.
warming effect. I've always drunk tea when I've come in from a cold, damp walk.
Yeah.
But the lattes I find increasingly warm me up better.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, chai lattes is the classic. And you could, because of spices like cinnamon or whatever, you can play with these things. So I'm not going to reel off any particular recipes, but
No,
yes,
no.
I play around with them because
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah, so like you, I tend to do more lattes in the winter. Like I'll have several in a day. So great for my calcium intake. And I love that you used proper milk. Nothing wrong with plant-based milks, and they're great. But I
No.
think that, unless you have a dietary requirement to have plant-based, I think that we need to remember that actual milk is needed for our bodies as well. And having sort of a balance of those is important. But I find them filling as well. Like it's warming, right? But it's a nice snack, I find.
Yes, I agree. Without actually having to have a snack, I
Yes.
thought about it this afternoon, thinking now what biscuit should I be serving myself?
Yeah.
And that's actually I said no for exactly that reason. This is going to be lovely and warming and filling.
Yeah.
And I don't need the extra calories of a lovely slice of shortbread, for example, which I'm very partial to. And would go beautifully with this.
It would.
And I'm not saying that other people can't do that. But yeah, for me, it's the right thing to do is just to have the latte.
Yeah. And I think it is 5 o'clock over there. So I personally would probably enjoy a shot of Kahlua inside of your delicious latte as well.
I'm going to save that till 6 o'clock.
Okay.
so not long now.
That's fair.
But yeah, no, that's a great build and a great suggestion. And yes, I happily do have some in the drinks cabinet. So yes.
Yeah. So what we associate as or call, I guess, coffee liqueurs, they do really, really nicely in all lattes, whatever your flavor of choice and milk of choice is.
Yeah, yes, I totally agree. And it is again a nice little extra element, and come 6 o'clock, hopefully deserved.
Perfect. Well, it's always lovely to see you, Stephen. I'm glad we were actually able to communicate at the end as well, because I didn't want to see you leave without saying thank you.
Not at all. It's always a pleasure to see you, and I wish you a continuing interesting session this afternoon. I'm looking forward to the next speaker.
Well, thank you very much. I wish you a very, very Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday season. It is, I think we finally reached the time of year where we can start saying it as well. So
this is true.
Have a really good one and stay safe.
You too.
All right. You take
Bye
care.
for now.
Bye-bye. Bye. Well, that was fabulous. So I didn't get to do an introduction, so let me do an introduction of who that was, although really Stephen needs no introduction. Stephen Twining is 10th generation of the famous tea family, Twinings, and he's known that he wanted to become involved in the family business from the age of 8. He joined Twinings in 1985, and after 9 years in a variety of jobs in sales, Stephen transferred to head office in Andover, where he's currently Director of Corporate Relations, incorporating media relations and business visits to Asia, Australia, Europe, Scandinavia, the Middle East, as well as North and South America. Stephen did an Earl Grey latte for us today, and I should, of course, say that as with all of our previous live sessions, entertaining sessions, iced tea sessions, etc., you can watch A, reruns on our YouTube channel, and B, when you click on the comments below or below the video itself, you will see a link to all of the recipes. So with that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next guest. And our next guest is Katie Sear. Katie is a certified TAC tea sommelier and the founder of Monarch Tea Co, a specialty tea company that brings together the traditional eloquence of tea time with a modern twist. Their teas can be found online and in select stores. Katie can often be found leading online and in-person tea workshops pairing tea and chocolate or tea and cheese. It also gives me great pleasure to let you all know that Katie is now also an instructor for the Tea and Herbal Association of Canada's in-person, yes, our classes are back, in-person tea sommelier courses in Toronto. So I'm going to talk to her about that in a moment. But let me bring on Katie. Hi, Katie. How are you?
Hi, Shabnam. I'm great. How are you?
Good. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yay.
Let us start with our live in class person. Our live in person classes are back.
Yay.
For those of you out in the world who are interested in those, we were offering those in 2019 and started in 2020, and then it happened. And we have not been able to have them again or since. And we will be starting them in January. So if you know of anybody or you are interested, the classes are going to be taught by Katie, who is a fabulous instructor and infectious with her energy, which is a wonderful thing. And the classes are going to be sort of intensive classes, which means that we're doing 2 classes over 3 days. Those 3 days are over weekends. So a Saturday, Sunday, Saturday. If you're looking for information, you can contact, you go to our website, tea.ca or teasommelier.com and sign up. When does the first class start? January?
January 21st, I believe. 21st, 22nd, and then the 28th is the third class, if I'm correct.
Perfect. Good.
Yay.
And they'll be in Toronto. So, but that's not what you're here for. You are here to talk to us about how to entertain with tea. And I have been told that you are going to make one of my favorite holiday beverages, and that is a twist on a mulled wine.
Mm-hmm. Shabnam, I feel like we have similar tastes because we both love gin and tonics, which is our summer drink. And now apparently I know you love mulled wine. So tea people, I think we're in the similar. It's something to do with maybe spices and the flavors. So I'm so excited to share with you and everyone today. Also one of my personal favorites and a favorite in our family, my husband's as well, is we love making mulled wine for the holidays. And what I love about it is you can make it for yourself or a loved one, but it's great when you have a larger amount of people coming over. So a group or some family, it's something everyone loves. Someone can have a small sip or they can have a big mug of it. And it's something nice you can have on the pot. You can make ahead. And so it's nice when guests are coming over, you can scoop out and serve it as they come in, but it's not something you need to make one at a time individually. So it's great for entertaining. It takes that kind of pressure off, having something that's already been made in advance. So I'm excited to share with everyone a little twist on a traditional mulled wine. We're doing the Monarch chai infused mulled wine. So we're actually going to be infusing some tea into a lovely mulled wine today. So when you're ready, I can share with you some tips and tricks to making an easy but very approachable and fun mulled wine.
All yours. Take it away.
Okay, awesome. So everyone, there's lots of different mulled wine recipes out there. What I've done is kind of found and slightly curated and adjusted one to make it as easy and simple as possible. So first things first, what we're going to need is a bottle of red wine. Anything works really, but Merlot or Zinfandel, those are some of the best choices for our mulled wine. We want something that's juicy, really berry forward, slightly sweet and bold. So we want it to really stand up when we're introducing our other spices. It doesn't need to be fancy, as we're going to be adding additional things to it and kind of simmering it for a long time. Don't worry about getting a very fancy bottle of wine. You can start with anything. So I just found this at the liquor store here in Ontario. It's Jackson Triggs Merlot, about $10 or $11. You would want to double or triple this depending on the amount of people you have coming over. So the one we're doing right now should serve up to about 10 to 12 guests. Depending on how much people are drinking, but this is just a regular 750 ml bottle of Merlot we have here.
Perfect.
Next, we're going to need a quarter cup of brandy or an orange liqueur. So I have Cointreau at home. Nice and easy, and it has a beautiful orange scent to it. So it's going to add a lovely little kick of citrus right into our mulled wine. So we're going to need about a quarter cup of that. Next part is our diced citrus. So here you can use orange, but I actually use mandarin orange. So clementines and mandarins, we're seeing a lot of those at the grocery stores right now here in Ontario. So I got a couple clementines and diced those up. You can also even add lime or lemon or all three. So for today, I actually have some lime and some diced clementine here in a little bowl. Next is our super fun part. We have our spices. So you can use about 8 cloves, a couple cinnamon sticks, and some star anise. So those are just going to start smelling beautiful, and you can play around. You can also add bay leaves, any other spices you like, but we have our traditional spice right here. Then the good stuff, we have 2 to 4 tablespoons of sugar. I like to start small and sweeten later if you want to add additional. So right here I have about 2 tablespoons of sugar measured out. And then our very fun part, we have our addition of tea. So for folks that have loose leaf tea at home today, I'm using one from my company, the Monarch chai, but you can use whatever chai you have at home. You can use loose leaf or tea bags. So if we have loose leaf here, 2 to 4 tablespoons. And what I love to do is I actually have the biodegradable fill your own tea bag. So I've scooped my tea right into a little bag like this. So if folks have something like this at home, it's awesome. If not, you can use a strainer. So I scoop my tea right into there. For folks that are using tea bags, that works too. About 2 tea bags are fine. So let's have those on the side. We don't need them right now, but we're going to tuck those out in the side. Okay. So now that we have our ingredients, we're also just going to need on the side, of course, our pot, a strainer, and a heat-proof mug. And from watching Stephen inspired me, I grabbed a glass mug as well. So I'm going to try to serve that in our glass mug today too for presentation. And of course, access to a stove. So when you're ready, we have our handy pot here. We're going to combine the wine right into our pot. And for sake of time, I won't pour our whole bottle in right yet, but we'll add that. And then we're going to add our 1/4 cup of Cointreau right into our pot. We're going to add our lovely, beautiful citrus, adding all that right into the pot there, making it nice and easy. Our bowl of spices. And our sugar. So now that that's all in the pot, it's going to look really pretty and visually appealing. It's a little harder to see here, but it's already going to smell beautiful. So what I want to do is actually put this right on my stovetop on low. So we don't want to pour it. We don't want to boil it because that would cause the alcohol to evaporate. And we don't want that to happen. So I like to put it on like 2 or 3 on a low simmer. And what I want to do is start stirring it right away to get that sugar starting to gently emulsify and kind of stir right into our mulled wine. So that's all going to go. It's gently simmering. I want to keep an eye on it. And the next part is we can actually leave this on the stove anywhere from 15 minutes all the way up to 3 hours. You could technically even leave it for longer. And if you're doing a special event with guests coming over maybe throughout the day or night, you could even put this in a slow cooker on low, and that will keep it nice and warm for your guests. Now, the fun part is any time between that 15 minutes and 3 hours, cut out about 8 to 10 minutes, and that's where we're going to have our tea. So at this point, let's say it's maybe an hour into my simmering, the house is smelling amazing. I want to take my tea bag, either my tea bags I have or my loose leaf tea in a steeper or a fill your own tea bag, and I'm actually going to put it right into my mulled wine. Okay. And you can kind of keep an eye on it or just kind of let it simmer. And it's going to be right in our pot. We're going to kind of slow steep that anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes. So you're going to kind of keep an eye on it. And that's actually going to add an extra level of complexity right into our tea, our mulled wine. Now, mulled wine, of course, already has those beautiful spices, a lot of those that we're already seeing traditionally in chai. But the fun part is we get an extra element of spice plus the addition of the black tea. So we're going to get kind of gentle, astringent notes, slightly spicy, warm, and cozy. And of course, depending on the chai you use, different chais are going to have different beautiful spices, such as maybe vanilla or even rose, cardamom, ginger, cinnamon. So you can customize your mulled wine based on the type of chai you choose to use. We want to steep that for about 8 to 10 minutes, personal preference, and then just take your tea bag out. We don't want to leave it in for too long. We don't want to over steep it and cause it to become maybe too bitter or too spicy. So we're going to remove that. Now that we're ready to serve it, I have in the background something I've already prepared this morning. So we have this little guy here that has been steeping for about an hour. Nice. So nice and hot. I'm going to demonstrate for you how to prepare your tea for serving. So we have your pot and we have your strainer and a mug of choice. So what you can do is if you want this already ready to go for when your guests are there, you can take your big pot and strain this in advance.
Mhm.
By straining, we're just removing all of the extra little spices and citrus that's floating around. You could strain individually, but it's going to be easier for you to strain your whole pot in advance, put it back into a fresh pot, and then just keep that on low or put that in your slow cooker for when your guests are here. So it's nice and warm throughout the day. So what I'm going to do here is I have my glass mug, my strainer, and then I'm gently just going to strain all of the mulled wine out. So I'm just going to kind of hold that up here for you. So you'll notice it just removes all of those excess steep little spices. So this is an example here of my beautiful mulled wine, nice and dark in color.
Lovely.
It immediately evokes the feelings of the holidays, cozy, warm, and gently spicy. Plus, it's infused with tea. So happy sipping, everyone. Cheers. And of course, don't forget to garnish with an additional fresh cinnamon stick if you'd like, and you can pop that right in your mug. Happy sipping, everyone. Cheers.
Lovely. Well, cheers to you. So there was an important tip that you gave earlier that I think is really important for people to know when they're making a mulled wine. And that is, you cannot speed up the process, because by speeding up the process and turning up the heat, you're going to cook off the alcohol.
Yes.
And what's the point then, really?
Exactly.
Right?
It just takes it away. And by boiling it too, we can sometimes it can become oversaturated with the spice. So having it on that low simmer, that we say like 15 minutes up to 3 hours, but the more time you have, the better, because it's going to become even more flavorful. And I've even made it a day in advance of guests coming and then reheating it, and it tastes even better because it's had kind of overnight to just get all cozy and the spices to really infuse and the wine to even taste fuller in flavor.
Yeah, so I'm like you. I confess that I make them ahead of time as well. And I will confess that this may or may not have been in my travel mug on a very regular basis. During lockdown, when we weren't allowed to see people inside homes, I would go for a walk with a couple of really good friends and the dogs, and our tea.
I've actually done that as well. I have the double-walled thermoses that I use for tea talks, but I've poured it with mulled wine and brought it to meeting friends up in the park, and we just pour it into our little hot cups and have our nice little mulled wine. It's cozy.
Exactly.
Perfect for wandering little holiday markets, things like that. So
exactly. Perfect. So my love of mulled wine started at holiday markets.
Yes.
So I lived in Germany. And nobody does Christmas markets like Germany does Christmas markets. And walking around with mulled wine is where I started my love of mulled wine.
So that's kind of for me as well. I don't have, unfortunately, the Germany background, which sounds amazing, but I remember like the Toronto distillery market, the Christmas market, we had the outdoor mulled wine booths. That's I think one of the first places I tried it as well. And I can already just imagine an idyllic market with little lights strung up in Germany too. That sounds amazing.
I have to give the distillery credit. They do a really, really good job of it. For those of you in Toronto that don't know what we're talking about, the distillery does a really, really good Christmas market every year. I think it's running.
I think it might even
started last weekend.
Yeah, it's right around this time. So everyone take a look at it. It's very cozy and
started
fun.
last weekend. So if you haven't been, go. It's really, really special. Well, thank you, Katie, for sharing that deliciousness. And
thank
good to see you. Yeah, good to see you. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope you and I are going to see each other beforehand. But enjoy, and your house must smell delicious right now.
It already does. Yes, I'm like, it's only 12:30 here, but is it too early to have a sip of? I don't think so.
Go for it.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. I hope to see those that are interested at our in-person tea sommelier course in January. I look forward to sipping tea with you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Katie.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that was a fun recipe. I love mulled wine. And as Katie said, there are so many different variations of it because it's really about the spices that you add to it. If you like a little bit more of something, put a little bit more of something. If you want to put a pinch of black pepper in, put a pinch of black pepper in. Another variation is to actually squeeze some fresh oranges into the wine mixture. Katie used a Cointreau, so an orange flavor liqueur, so she got some of that orange flavor. But if you don't have Cointreau, I've used cognac in the past. I've used whiskey in the past. I've used bourbon in the past. You really just need a little bit of it, not a whole lot. And then you can get the citrus flavor from, like I said, squeezing some orange juice in it. I find that squeezing the orange juice in it also helps me to cut back on adding any other sugar. So another thing that you can think about if you want to do a variation well, create your house recipe. That's what I say. So with that, I am very pleased to introduce our third guest, Chris MacNitt. Chris is the tea development lead, global tea for Starbucks Coffee Company. His experience spans across many, many aspects, a few of them being tea industry and manufacturing, sensory quality control, regulatory, and product development. And I know that there's a whole long list of other things that we could add to Chris's resume, but we are not, because we're just going to pop him on up and say, hi, Chris, how are you?
Hey, Shabnam, how are you?
I'm good. Nice to see you.
It's good to see you. Yeah, it's way early for me to have mulled wine, to be completely honest. At 9.
Yeah, it's you're 9:30 in the morning now, right?
Yeah.
12:30 is pushing it on a Wednesday, but 9:30 would be a little bit over the edge.
Yeah, toes over the edge.
Definitely toes over the edge. But you are going to take us in a different direction, and I love this because making presents is, I think, one of the nicest, loveliest ways that you can express that somebody has been on your mind and that you want to share something from your heart with them. And you, I hear, are going to show us how to make a tea candle.
Yeah, so funny enough story. I think, as most things, when you have lots of time by yourself during lockdowns and such, you try and my family, I live in Seattle, my family lives in Florida, so it's a very long journey. So during the time apart, I figured out a way to make candles. And then obviously, once I figured out how to make a candle, I figured out how to distill essential oils from tea to make said candle. And so I have kind of I'll kind of walk through the distillation process, but then also kind of give kind of what is more commonly known as the poor man's essential oil, and kind of walk you through that, which requires only a double boiler to make.
Okay, I know it sounds very, very fancy, and it sounds like I need some kind of chemistry kit when you start saying distillation, but I know it's not as complicated as it sounds. So this was your COVID hobby? Is that everybody came out with a skill out of COVID? This was yours?
Yeah, this is one of them.
Okay. Good one.
Candles. So yeah, I wanted to do something. I really, it had to do with getting really into the aromatics and kind of, as part of work, you deal with aromas so much. How do you distill those? What does that look like? What does that output look like? And then, of course, now what do I do with all this distillate that I've made? The candle is a logical place to house those aromas and then be able to share them as gifts, as you said, with other people, which is the nice. Ironically enough, not a candle person, but make candles. So there you go.
Well, you must have a lot of happy people in your life then, if you're giving them all away.
Yep, giving them all away.
All
so just to kind of walk through the distillate process, I mean, it's no different than an alcohol still for any of for our gin and tonics, right? Similar base, except for the fact that you're only using water and botanicals. And so you're putting those all in the pot portion of it and then distilling basically the water off, which will leave you an oil extract that you then have to strain your botanicals or teas out of, and then you'll have just that extracted tea or botanical extract with which you then can put into your candle, your paraffin or candle wax candle, or beeswax candle, in order to create the aromas that you want to see for the candle. So that's kind of the distillate process. That's how I produce this. This is a lavender and mint botanical with a little bit of Earl Grey, actually, to sprinkle in, because I like the bergamot. And there's something about the tea flavor that I think actually makes the lavender and the mint more potent, in my mind, as far as the combination of those three things: a little bit of citrus, a little bit of mint, and then obviously the lavender kind of driving that floral element to give a nice bouquet on the nose. So that takes about 4.5 hours to do. The other way, and the way that you can also do it, is if you get a carrier oil. Okay. Carrier oils, in particular, grapeseed is kind of the preferred. I actually like safflower, which is one of the ways in which I do it, and because it gives it a little bit more of an herbal base. It has a little bit more of an herbal profile to it. And so when you mix the botanicals, I think it makes it smell more natural and less of that, like, I always get kind of frustrated with candle smells that smell very artificial. And so there's something like earthy about safflower that I really like. Slightly less neutral, but grapeseed is kind of the preferred. If you want it to be super aromatic, you're going to want to go with a more neutral oil base. Then what you would do is you would put it into the double boiler, and you would, on a low simmer. You do not want to go too high, because once again, not dissimilar to burning the alcohol off, you don't want those volatile oils to dissipate into the air. And so you want it on a low simmer for, between 4 and 6 hours in order to extract those volatiles and volatile aromatics into the what we would call a carrier oil. And then from there, you, once again, not dissimilar to the distillation process, you would strain that off, and that strained off oil would now be your essential oil that you would use. Okay. From there, you can either clean out your double boiler, or you can just wipe out any excess material, and then you can throw your wax and paraffin directly into that double boiler again, once again, because we want to melt it but not burn it. You'll need to turn the temperature up to make sure that you have that it melts all the way through. And and what you'll get is a very clear liquid. So I'm going to just kind of pick you up, Gary, over here. And so what you'll see is you'll see kind of the clear liquid. Okay. Yep. So that's just paraffin ready to go in our double boiler. It starts out as a block, a big white block. Yeah. From there, you'll be ready to make a candle. Then you want to leave that on kind of like medium high heat. So now that it's all melted, I'm going to turn that down just a touch. And so now you have to pick a vessel. You can pick any one. I like mason jars. I don't know why I like mason jars. I just do. They're a little bit more difficult because the kind of the inside lining can be a bit of a problem from sticking the wick into the bottom. So other vessels are actually easier to use. I like to make it hard on myself, I guess.
Interesting for someone who's not even going to enjoy the candle.
I don't know. I guess the effort is what I'm most intrigued by, the effort. So you can do glue dots. Glue dots are preferred. In this case, I'm going to use like a glue stick and just rub a little bit on the bottom of the wick. I like the pre-made wicks. You can get them, online or at a local craft store. Fairly easy to find. You'll want to center it and put it in the center. So
just a question for you. You don't have the metal disc at the bottom of your wick.
I do.
So that would have made your life easier.
Yeah, it does. It does have the metal. See, I have the metal. So what you do is you have the thread. You can thread it through and then crimp it down and then cut it. And so that gives you
that would make it easier to stick, wouldn't it? At the bottom.
It does, and it doesn't. At least in the mason jars. And the problem is the second that you pour hot liquid, a lot of times it'll move and shift,
course.
and then that will throw off where your candle wick is. So so from there, the key trick. So I kind of got it stuck in the center, and then I'm folding a piece of parafilm, but you could as easily use craft tape. And I'm just cutting a little piece in the roughly in the center, and then using that and threading the wick through, so that on the top, so that I can hold the wick in place and maneuver it as the candle cools. All right.
Got it.
All right, cool.
Yep.
So we're ready to go. So now you've got your, what would presumably be tape, or in my case, parafilm. It's glued to the bottom and ready to go. Just test a little bit to see how loose it is. It's a little bit loose, so I'm going to go back in there and kind of plot you back down. There we go. All right, cool. And we're ready to go. Okay, cool. All right, so now that I have the paraffin wax ready to be used, I just take and do about between 20 and 30 drops of my essential oil to aromatize it. And I do that while turning the temperature way down, because we don't want to boil off the aromas if you just leave it in there. The first time I did this, I totally screwed it up because I put way too much, I gave it way too much time to blend in with the wax.
Okay.
So 15 drops. I'm going to add a few more.
So you put it in at the very end. Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
Right before we dose it into the candle. So
I would have made your mistake, and I would have put it in thinking that it needs time to meld.
Yeah. So what I found is that it doesn't take too long. You give it about 15, 20 seconds. I like to agitate it a little bit and roll it a little bit around in the top of the double boiler. Just so that I can, and then the second that I start to get a whiff, like right now I get the lavender, the mint is starting to come off of this. And so I pull this and I set it to my candle. And then I just kind of pour it in, and there you go. And then what I like to do is I like to pour about halfway and let it set.
Okay.
Because the more you pour, the more likely the wick is to move. And so what I have here is one that's already partially poured and straight. And what you can see how.
Oh, so you really let it set?
Yeah, I actually let it set a little bit more than some of my contemporaries probably would. And then I actually add more to that to finish the candle.
Okay.
Top. So now I have a candle that I can
gift to somebody.
Send to a friend. And so, so I let it set, and then it takes some time for it to set. And obviously, and that's how it will lock in that, like, that's how it really makes sure that the wick is stationary in that center part of whatever candle vessel you're in. That's the trickiest. Honestly, to me, that's the trickiest part, but it's also kind of the most fun, if you ask me. So
it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge. And then the tape with the threading the wick through really helps you to continue to center that as you add more wax in there.
So that's a really good tip. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you want to do like fancy stuff, you can throw like little ice chips in here, and that will create those like spaces and crystallization in there as it pops, and you can also add colors to it. So if you wanted to create like a dye of some sort with like butterfly pea flower or something, you can also dye them blue and all colors of the rainbow with natural dyes and natural botanical dyes. But that's essentially how you make a tea candle.
So I'm gonna go. I just want to go back to the essential oil that you made, because you made that in safflower oil or whatever oil that you chose. It's edible, which means that candle would be one use, but you can actually use this for a whole slew of other purposes. And I think that that's what I really love about the way that you've done this. is that you can put in the time to make the distillate, but because it's food grade, it's based in food, you can, the time that you use to make that, you can use it to make candles, you can put it in your food, you can, with an oil, maybe not in a cocktail, but you could make the distillate in alcohol as well, can you?
Yes, you could. So if you're doing kind of like it's a similar process in like Amaros and things like that, and gin for that matter, right?
Yeah.
Gin has a very similar, except for the fact that you're kind of using the mash at the bottom is kind of rising through those botanicals as opposed to the botanicals being directly in that sort of mash. So it's a little bit of a modification, but they're all in very similar veins, and it's all about trying to extract those aromatics. If you're going to use food, I tend to actually like to go with a coconut oil and just kind of like lean into it, and then you can add you can create that extract that way. So it's kind of like a bit of a coconut oil, but it's also like a lavender extract. And then you could throw that into muffins or cakes or whatever your heart desires. And to give it a little bit of something that's like a little bit of like a personalized panache to it. So I think that there's some really fun ways to play with it. And certainly, you don't have to do the boiler with the boiling off the water and all of that. You can do it in a way that's, a little bit less labor intensive and a little bit, more convenient to everyday life.
Love it. Thank you so much, Chris. It's always good to see you.
Yes, absolutely.
For those of you who are interested in how to make this and how to make a distillate and all the rest of that, as I said earlier, the recipes are going to be linked on our YouTube channel as well. So, Merry Christmas to you. Are you going home for the holidays?
I will be going home for the holidays, yes.
More important, though, you've got Thanksgiving tomorrow because, see, as a Canadian, my head is in Christmas. As an American, you're thinking, let me get through the turkey of tomorrow first.
I just have to make stuffing tomorrow, so we'll see.
You're making stuffing tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm making stuffing for tomorrow.
I thought Americans called it dressing.
I did, yeah. I don't know. There's
we call
them rules to this, Shabnam, and I do not know them and do not care to learn them either.
Whatever it is, it's delicious, whatever you want to call it. So a happy Thanksgiving tomorrow, and Merry Christmas when you do get there.
Yep.
See you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wonderful to see you as well. Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, as always, and I know I say this every time we do this, but our guests always tend to surprise me because we always have interesting and different things that they share with us. And for that, I'm forever grateful. Our recipes, as I've mentioned, are going to be on our channel. So if you go to YouTube, you can see it there. If you want to rewatch something, if you want to fast forward and see anything, obviously the videos are going to be stored there. If you've missed previous episodes of ICE TV, which we run in June, or Entertaining with Tea, which we ran for the first time last holiday season, you'll find those on our YouTube channel as well. In the meantime, I hope to see you back here, same time, same place next week, to share some more fabulous recipes. And in the meantime, I hope that you do try some of the fun things and tips that our guests today have shared with us, and do some entertaining with tea. Thanks, everybody, and see you next week. Bye-bye.